RPGers, game masters, and such. We are doing the D&D trials, and we are going to run a test on the thief, a 4th level thief. Two different types. One that's rules is written. The other one is with some changes as far as house rules based on what Chuck found on the Swords of Wizardry on Discord. Okay, and I'm going to actually do another test, which basically consists of two different players. Mike and Chuck are going to run the thieves, but they don't know what each other did. They're not communicating with each other. So Chuck's going to run it first, and then it's going to be turned around, and Mike's going to run it. So I'm going to tell you right now, Chuck's already run it. So I have to be consistent with the odds. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to explain the odds that I gave to Chuck during each one of his encounters. And I wrote them all down, so I'm going to be consistent when Mike goes through the same thing. So when we start talking about Chuck, Chuck is going to be first. He could talk about the two different characters. I'm not going to do that here, but I will show you the odds of going through this module right here. This is the map and what it looks like. But I wrote down, so I'm going to be consistent between the two different guys on what's going on. The goal is very simple. There's a necklace that's worn by the chieftain. It's worth 1,200 gold pieces. And if you go all the way through, get the necklace and come back out, you win 1,200 gold pieces, and you win at Dungeons and Dragons, right? The second thing is if you cut off the chieftain's head and bring it out, you get an extra 300, which I think would be impossible, but I just put that in there for fun. The rules are the player can outrun the kobolds, but outrunning them on the way in will just basically get you stuck in the back of the cave. But on the way out, you can outrun them with a series of rolls, and hopefully you can get through it. So if you get initiative, you can outrun them. Okay, which means you get a chance to move up to 60 feet, which will outrun the opponent. Okay? They're little guys. You should be able to do this, okay? So I deem that fair in Chuck's game. It'll be the fair in Mike's game, too, as well. Coming into the complex, it's a 2 out of 6 in the entrance of whether or not you get ambushed. But if you turn around and if you sense them, like you roll higher than, like you roll 3 or higher, right? You can try to make the corner and come in without being seen by rolling for your silent check, okay? A thief silent check. It's not going to be hide in shadows because it's going to be during the daytime, so it's just being quiet enough to get in. Next one is a thief, according to our design. Now, Chuck brought up Adventurer, Conqueror, King has this thing where thieves kind of get a sense of what they're doing in the dark, and I'm like, it's fine, we'll do that up in 10 feet. So they do not have to have a torch inside the complex. It makes it a little easier for doing this. They have to get past a pit trap, that one when you first walk in, that's the fine trap, and whatever it is on their stat thing for rolling it. If the player, like this is what Chuck did, he decided to grab a stone, which I allowed, and he threw it into the rat area, which is over here on this side over here. And when he did this, the kobolds had to make a saving throw. If they failed their saving throw, then I have to roll a 1d8 for the guys trying to chase him in, or a 1d6 for the guy sitting right here to find out how many end up following Chuck. So the ones that I roll, if I get a number, they're going to continue following Chuck into the cave complex. I'll be consistent with this, okay? So the next thing they do is, the room was never explored. So if Mike decides to go into that room, he'll have a whole different set of odds. I don't have to replicate because Chuck didn't do it. The tunnel fork, this is kind of weird. So Chuck did this thing where he ran and he pulled back and hit against the shadows, kind of letting them know, trying to, I guess, give them the Irish dip, trying to get out of the way right here, right? So at that point, I will roll 1d6 or 1d8, depending on how many they're chasing him at that point, okay? And he can bend back and maybe kind of like tuck into the corner in that passageway. And at that point, it's a 50-50 whether or not they'll see him. So how many go in his direction? 50-50. So if 3 go that way, and then he rolls a 50-50, and he fails with the 50-50, then those 3 see him as he turns that wall. So this is kind of where our situation was, okay? So, but one thing for sure is that big room down here is going to be activated. Even though it has the pile in here, it's no longer in the map. They're here, so 17 kobolds, 23 female. If a guy runs down there, then sure enough, they're going to activate that whole room, okay? Just letting you know. So I gave 2 attempts for Chuck to try to pick that lock. The same thing will be granted to Mike if that's what he decides to do, okay? He can attempt to climb the wall and hide up here in the ceiling, okay? But he has to do 2 different things, like climb wall check, and he has to do a silent check, okay? So that's something to take into consideration. The other thing, too, is that if captured, okay, all the kobolds, so say if they activate everybody in the chamber, so 6 here, 8 here from outside, 17 from here, or 7, whatever comes up to here, these 3 guards, everybody comes down and converges on the thief. everyone's going to return to their posts because there's orcs and everything else running around there, goblins, so they're not going to stand around for just one guy. So the guys in the chainmail, the 3 guards in the chainmail up here, will be the ones to take him to the chieftain for questioning. All right, I decided I have to do the same thing for Mike I did for Chuck, or it's not fair, right? If Mike is smart enough when he goes to play and is able to sleight of hand and hide a dagger up into a sleeve, I'm going to allow that automatically. As a 4th level thief, he should be able to do that no problem. All right. If he decides when he's walking to turn to make a stick into one of the kobolds, he's going to get a surprise and 2 times damage if he decides to do that. Now, that's something we retroactively backed up on Chuck, because Chuck wouldn't have, and I wish he would have said it when we were playing it, I would have let it go because I would consider it a surprise attack. Okay, so I think a thief does get that. I know he gets the backstab if he comes from behind, but I would consider it a complete surprise. They would not know he had a weapon still on him. Mike actually and both thieves have this tucked inside their shirt, so you can't see it on their skins. A whole bunch of throwing darts, so those things will still be concealed. So I'm going to keep that consistent, right? Never explored this room just walking up to it because the guards came down to him. So if Mike gets all the way up here, totally unseen, all the way up to here, how he attacks this will be completely different because of the sheer fact that we'd have to roll for sneaking in here, or odds in there for attacking those 3 guards. So that'll be different if he decides to go that route. In the chieftain's room, if he's able to sneak in, okay, it's a delicate task to see if he opens the door and doesn't disturb the chieftain. All right, so it doesn't distract it by making the door squeak. All right, the chieftain himself will be on a bed of rags with one of the female kobolds. The other 4 will be sitting at a table eating with their back turned towards him. All right, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt of trying to get in and out of this thing fairly easy. There's a blanket that's hanging on the wall. Okay, he can hide behind that, crawl around the floor. No check is needed for each one of these things because I think they're that good as thieves. Okay, because I think it's creativity. If Mike figures that out, that's great. It's a delicate task to remove the necklace from the chieftain's neck as he's busy with the female, how would you say, right? To exit that room unseen, because he spent most of the time coming in, coming out should be fairly easy, especially after all the things happens. It's a 90% chance. Just roll below a 90, all right? Now, this is the exit, okay? Never explored this room, so there's nothing to roll, but when he's trying to exit the complex, okay, he could run his whole way out if he wants to, all right? If he's running to get out of here, to run past the guards at point 1, which is here, it's just below a 75% on a statistical roll. So he would just basically be able to jump off of that thing, okay? If to run past the guards on the way out that are up here, the ambush guards, if he hasn't got rid of them, it's a 50%. But if he doesn't make it past it, he has to turn around and roll for initiative. If he fails initiative, all 8 of them will attack him, right? But if he beats the initiative, he can still run off. They would not catch up with him in the daylight. So that's how we're going to roll this, to try to make it consistent between the 2 different players. Hopefully this thing works out great. I thank you for watching. Have a good day.